Hi guys, I'm Raju, the SAP HANA trainer for you. So in this series of videos, we are learning the complete SAP HANA online tutorial. We already started some concept called SAP HANA online systems. So in which we can get all this requirements. So in the previous videos, if you check my previous videos, in which we can learn some certain concept, we done some certain activities in which we can get some activities. We done the installation part, configuration, and some other activities. So in this series of videos, we are learning complete SAP HANA administration part, on which we can have all these activities. So let's see how this SAP HANA will goes up. First we'll have a look on the SAP HANA, then we'll move. In this video we'll learn the topic called high availability disaster. If we have only one server, then if suddenly it crash out, then how to maintain those kind of activities in this part. Let's have a look on this part. So let's check all those requirements. Okay, so we'll start now. So when you talk about SAP HANA, let's talk about SAP HANA. So it's nothing but high performance analytical appliance. So we also call it's an in-memory DDP, because the record will stores in the RAM. So in this SAP HANA, what we have major three components like HANA Studio, which we call as GUI, graphical user interface, which is connected to HANA client, and the client will connect to HANA server. Server will support SUSE Linux environment installed on top of the RAM. So we can install on it will be installed on the server, which call as SUSE, as well as Red Hat environment also. So once you install the Studio and the client on Windows environment, we install the server on the Linux environment. So once it's done, we can just able to connect the server. So it means that once you done this entire part, it means that a connection is established. So here when you talk about server will support only SUSE environment, not on the Red Hat. Support Red Hat as well as SUSE, but SUSE will support up to level 0.3 onwards, which is certified OS. But in the case of Red Hat, it supports the from 6.5 onwards only. So all the different cases will be happen on these scenarios. So these are all basic requirement. So let's discuss about how we can perform the certain activities, like the versions. Here when you talk about the version of server, here we have Service Pack 1 to Service Pack 10 is the older version. We got Service Pack 12 is the latest version, and here the client is acting as the ODBC drivers, and the version of HANA we call as it's running on 1.00.111, which is running on level 0.4 certified OS of SUSE, as if you run on 6.5 certified OS of Red Hat. Okay, this is what the basic requirement on this. We can get these activities. So is how we can get all those performance issues will be take place here. So in this video we learn how we can maintain the high availability on disaster, like how we can take the backup recovery. If you got any issues, how we can maintain the high availability disaster. So let's talk about the high available disaster. So let's talk about this high available disaster. So when you talk about here in real time, what happened here, we'll maintain the one development machine, quality, and the production. So development machine, quality machine, and production machine. This is called development machine, is a quality, and this is my production. So in order to handle the production, because we have maintained only one production, if anything crashes, then what happen? So how we can manage this production server and to get this all activities? So what we do is we'll maintain the 2 data centers on this one production. So it will be useful to get those, like this one data center, we maintain one more data center, so 2 data center, and we communicate between these 2 them. So this help you out, we can get this result in any format. Okay, so here I'll call as this is one data center and this is one more data center. So what happen here, we'll just do this 2 are always be replicating. So it's primary and we do all the replicating. So whenever you perform any activities, the record will not be, if suddenly data center 1 will be it was break off or crash out, so we can take the data from the data center 2. If 2 is crash out, then we can take the data from the 1. So it's how the recovery will be happen. So let's anyways we'll see how we can perform certain the high availability on disaster systems. Let's see if in the PPT onwards, and we'll go with some systems. So we have disaster on SUSI we have, and we also have high availability also. Installation part, monitoring part is scale out disaster we have. We'll see first scale out disaster, then we'll go with the disaster on SUSI. So 2 we have also have Red Hat also. We'll check on those category, both the things. So let's talk about the satisfaction high availability disaster here. So what are different things we have here? So here the first of all we will focus on the what's the new in satisfaction. We have the different types of agents will be take away here, and we need to focus on those category. So scale out we have persistence layer we have, which can perform any activities, we can check all those scenarios, and we have the information on this things. So this plays a major role if you want to get any activities will be done, and will make on those scenarios. Let's talk about this part. So we have high availability disaster of virtual SAP systems file, scale out high availability systems, and we have certain activities to be done on this scenario. So we have disaster recovery high availability, and we have disaster recovery of high availability of SAP systems application, optimization in row store handling for faster take up on the stuff. So let's talk about this stuff information, how this gonna happen on these missions. First we'll discuss on the scale out availability. If you go to the scale of availability, what the different things will perform here. So let's go over here. If you have multiple existing systems, so you can check your existing data and logs information. If these are getting a local information of each and every activities, in that case you can get all those information here. So let's talk about this part. So every SAP HANA have a save point, because whenever you do any activities, it should have some save point to execute on the, also check the at virtual database files is executed port. It means that, see here, has the record will stores in the memory, that's the memory concept. So whenever you perform any activities, so we have the hard drive here, we also manage the records in the hard drive, and this is called the persistent layer. So including RAM, we also maintain the layer called persistent layer. So this is called my RAM here, whereas this is called layer called persistent layer, and this is the actual hard drive. So when I do any transaction, the record in this layer will stores in this format. Okay. So here the record always stores as a page format. We call it as page management. Once my page is saved with 4000 pages, how I can know it was saved? Because we'll get some save point. We'll assign some save point. Once the save point is reached, it means that it was reached our database. So once it's reached, what we do, we just take the backup of this data. It will take around and save in the hard drive. So it happens everyday cases like this one. But suddenly, if my RAM was not saved, or not filled with the 4000 pages, it filled only 345 pages, and I lost my power at this point. When the power is, what means that the data from the RAM it lost, because it's a volatile, so it lost. But here we have a layer called persistence. It will take the backup of each and every data and log information, which is redo logs and undo logs. So a copy of the same record will also stores in the persistence staging area here. So what I do here, when you restart your machine, we'll take a backup from here and we'll save here. So due to this, no more data loss will be take place. This is how we can get those activities will be take place. So this is a major activities. So these are the different cases will be have on these scenarios. So let's see how this will be. Let's check now. You can see here. So with every SAP system, we get some save point, which will be useful in a different scenarios. So here, what we do is, so we have every SAP system save point will link. So here we get some data volume dictionary, we get some directory, all this will be happen for every scenarios, and we get data volume files also will be generated on the machine, and all this will be take place on systems. So we have some the recommended activities as long as the database is still functional activities. so can still create these OS activities on those scenarios. So what we do is, so we get some activities which has be take the backup and save them every recovery after restarts. So it will take the backup recovery at every level on if you get any activities will be take place on systems. So is how we can get this major things will be take place on these machines. So let's check all this field how it's going to happen in real time environment. So let's take here. So here with the restart of SAP system, final logs of file bot stopped in the bodies. So whenever you perform any activities will be take place on recently systems, but we need to get all those system activities will be we need to perform on this stuff. So here when you get this activities, so with alerts of SAP information we can take the enough action. So let's talk about the how we can perform the high availability disaster on this machine if you perform any activities on this actons. Let's talk about these systems. So if you talk about failure, so we have a lot of information we must save here. So a failure group can be defined of each host, it may be happening on each host at any level. So we can get all those information on these scenarios. So in since if you want to perform any activities, like we have in case of failure the name server tried to fail the overall host within the same group. Since we have size pack 1 with a dynamic threading part which will has to have some other information, we can get all those information at one place. So this help you out, like we have failure groups with a group possible different size will be take on this same category, so which gonna have all this information and get all these things will be take place. So since size pack 10 we have dynamic threading special failure group of each group of possible different size, the hardware need to perform on this technology. So what we are extend the different IOs of dynamic threading and share the offer host failure on each and every platform that we can be extended forever. So if you talk about this system, so we have a lot of information which can get all this get at very different cases. So let's talk about this technology was extended for different systems, we can get all this information. So we have dynamic threading which can be useful on these activities machine. So we have some no changes necessary for take place. So we get all those activities will be information on these things. Let's talk about this system. So if we went to the installation part here, we are with SAP installation service pack 10 to be only supported automatically on failure of settings will be take place on this 8 scenarios. So is how we can get this information on each and every machine will be take place at any level, information to be done here. So if you took any distribution dynamic threading on NFC, and if you got any information which number, then in that case we can check all those information to be take place here. So this supports with a new NII parameter. So we have some settings here. We have to go with the system and check for the global.ini information, which has lot of provider, which has HTTP_HA.FC client will be connected on the machine. So based on that, we need to check our activities to be done. So we can see some setting basic information here. We have enable extension storage and some other partitioning one. You can get all those information on this scenario. So based on this activities, you can perform any things. So is how we can get this information on those things. So let's check some other information. If you want to perform any activities on this category, then how we can get all those information on these things. So let's go with here. At every time when you perform any things, so we need to perform that name server, which for client must be processing of NFC and SAN and name server. So what happened here, every name server will take place on this information. So let's talk about this stuff. So we do some setting activities at every cases. So it help you out to perform any things on particular information on system. So what's the new things we got in this one? So we got a joint failure group which have extended storage, host roles which we have the part will be take place, and all those still the process is used for manual failures process. So if you talk about here, this all will be take place on the machine at this every level. So let's go with these systems. So we have extended storage worker, which are extended storage standby, and still possible to use the manual failure which have cases. So we can do a daemon done in that we have global.ini and as well as daemon global.ini. We have commands on the parameters. So number of retries if service fails in start procedure. So startup error, restart, retries if 4, and emits we have might be important of a slow of invoice iOS level as well as wait time in minutes between the start tries and setting the parameter. So startup error, restart, delay time which of 10,000 times, waiting period between the retrieves in seconds. And if parameter startup error shutdown, we have instance in a service selections set to the daemon server will be shut down all services on host if these services will be take place. As well as we can't start the if the startup error, restart the retrieve this set of the shutdown will be intimated after all the retrieves failure. So we just use all the startup information on instead of truth. We can get information out of true here. We also get some information about the if a name server fails to restart, the daemon will shut down the all services of all hosts, and the daemon itself will be act as information. So it just make the failure here, and it in earlier version of SAP HANA still running in the daemon prevented the failure connectivities. So in the landscape setup here, the join the failure group, which extended storage. We have a host roles, extended storage workers, extended storage standby. Still possible to use a manual failure, and if you get all those information at any place things. Let's talk about the system. So we have a new parameter called daemon.ini commands on a new parameters which number of retrieves will serve failure group. So because of this information, we'll got those activities to be done at any places on this category. So let's talk about this information on a particular things here. So if you perform any waiting time, so I want to get this activities to be done by at time. So we do all this activities on certain time period. So let's talk about this information. So we have if parameter startup it will be take place, then how we can get those information on this category. So this is how we can perform certain activities will be done place on this area. So let's talk about those information, how we can get these things. So let's discuss on this area. So if you talk about any waiting time in the between startup, it's just a parameter, and we check all those parameters will be take place on this information. If parameters like we have startup shut down instance services to be take place, and we to get those information on this period. So we have shut down all the services on the host if services will be needed. And we have shut down all services on the host if services are be, it will be every time will be needed on this information. So we cannot start if the services errors restart the retries, it should be shut down, will be instated after all the retrieves failure, and we can get those information on particular things areas. If parameters is set to true in section, in that case what we do is we have to perform those daemon will be shut down all services in their host, and daemon itself will be activated. And we also have failure scenarios. If you talk about any failure scenarios, we'll go this information. So let's talk here. Now we'll go with the high over disaster scenarios. If you got any information, let's talk how it will happen. So we'll take the performance here. So optimizing the row stores, handling the different workloads. We have extensions of the service pack 12 features which keeps the inductions process. So let's talk about this scenarios. So how you can use a memory secondary during the takeoff. So with service pack 12 and the rebuild of secondary indexes during the deactivations of row stores now can be done in the recoupled way. So no necessary to wait for finishing the creations process, it done asynchronously in the background. Short term missing secondary index can be copied with the primary key access to involve stable until they are created. Columnar storage we have is preloaded for possible takeover anyways. So if we have performance optimized, we have versions of system application to be used. In that case, we go with this information. And if I want to check this category at any level, so we use a columnar stores to preload for possible takeover way if the performance optimized versions will be replicated at any level. So let's talk how it's going to happen in this real time cases. So now if we talk about new, we have a lot of information which got this information, we get all those things. So when you talk about here, so you can see this is a new cockpit we can see kind of a dashboards we can monitor on any ways. So we have different scenarios, we can get all those parsers. So this kind of information which we get on these things. So it's a new dashboard scenarios where we can get in all this information on at mobile devices we can handle, as well as we can get all those scenarios at any places. So this is a new dashboards look like to perform any activity